To begin with, one thing we had in common, even though we're a contractor and sometimes they're not a contractor, we have some sort of pre-bid or pre-job meeting that happens way before the work starts. And what we've developed is a form, it comes from the Safety, Health, Environmental group, that asks questions from the client. For us, it's the client or the owner, and they're a utility usually. And we hit things like, what's the fault current? What's the maximum available fault current? What's the arc flash hazards that you've done here? What's the calculations of data? What kind of FR gear are we going to need? What are some environmental issues? Is there any asbestos we're going to be exposed to? You know, what about this transite? Do you got any baseline data that you've done? Any hygiene studies, anything like that? So we've got a hit list that we don't have to have a safety guy there. Anybody can go down there and they're going to ask the client point blank those questions at the pre-bid meeting, and those become action items usually that someone's assigned to, and they're going to find out that information and get it back to us and everybody else that's involved in that process. We've also developed a best practice of every district has a safety committee. And that's kind of tough when you're a mobile workforce because they're, you know, remote locations. So sometimes they can't all get together face to face every month to have a meeting. And that's our best practice, that's a requirement. The CEO of the company's mandated it. And so everybody has this safety meeting. Sometimes it's a conference call, but there's a person designated to lead it. There's a person designated to take the notes and the minutes. They're recorded and they're distributed to everyone. And the way that's done is, if you got email, it's pretty easy. But most of our people don't have email. But all of our people get a check. So it's put in the check, a copy of it's put in the check, and they get that. And it's formatted in a real simple way, old business, new business. And what that does is allow things to be addressed, and you've got documentation so that items that are brought up don't get fall through the cracks, so to speak. They also, included with that goes in every check, is a form where someone can solicit information anonymously. Meaning they may not want to come up to their representative on their crew and say, hey, I got an issue with this. And believe me, that's a huge culture issue in our business and maybe in yours. So they can do that, but some of them think that, well, if I mail it, they're going to trace my handwriting and where I mailed it from, and they'll still figure out it was me. So we also have what's called My Safe Workplace. It's a 1-800 number. It's totally anonymous, run by a third party. That information gets back to us. It's very effective for people that want to remain anonymous and bring up issues that get addressed by the safety committee. And the safety committee is far more effective than the safety department because managers, vice presidents, and CEOs listen to that safety committee. Another best practice, the My Safe Workplace one, we have a scheduled monthly safety managers conference call, or managers safety conference call. This is not blended in with any of their other conference calls. This is designated to talk about safety issues. And they are required to talk about all the near misses, all the incidents, the disposition of that incident, and corrective actions. They share information freely, openly, which is something that didn't happen years ago. Everybody held it very tight and close, and it was top secret, and nobody wanted to know anybody else. Nobody wanted anyone else to know their business. So that's a best practice, and that happens throughout the entire organization. It's scheduled, and it gets done every month. And all that information shared throughout the organization, much the same way. That probably doesn't get down to the employee level, but it does get down to the supervisor level. And then the last one is composite investigation groups. When there is an incident, it's not just the safety committee, or it's not just the TapRooT wizards that are doing it. We get involvement from people who are from the supervisor level, the craft level, maybe even a composite of different crafts within an incident, because even though it may be an electrical incident, it's not that the hazard isn't presented in other crafts. And one of those, within that best practice is a sub-best practice that the legal department is notified every time there's an incident. And they get involved at whatever level they think they need to get involved in, or whatever level we think they need to get involved in. We've learned that they are not our enemies. They're actually a tremendous asset, and they help us out a lot. They've become TapRooT trained, although they don't do TapRooT, they don't use TapRooT, but they speak TapRooT, and they get involved in the incident at all different levels. So from day one, or from as soon as that incident happens, they are notified and involved. Thank you very much.